If you're an immigrant filing your taxes for the very first time, welcome. In this video, I'll show you how to use the TurboTax software to file your income taxes. And in order to do that, just go to turbotax.com. This is a walkthrough of the process, so it's a little bit long, but feel free to follow along and I will provide some voiceover to let you know what's going on. If you have any question or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. After logging in, the software will ask several questions and you just click the square or the box of your answer. So like for example, I want to maximize tax deductions and credits, like who wouldn't, right? Employment. As a new immigrant, maybe you only have a W-2 job. This simply means that you are employed by a company, an organization, or a business. If you have children or dependents, and whether you own your home or you're renting a house or an apartment. When I first used this software, I just said that I'm comfortable on my own. If I didn't know the answer, I would just call my friend Google and I will be able to find the answer and still use TurboTax. You can also choose the other options, but take note, extra features of the software will cost more money. TurboTax will invite you to sign up for additional features. But if your situation is simple, no need to pay extra, just choose the most basic option. So you probably didn't file taxes last year if this is the first time that you're filing taxes as a new immigrant. Well, this is nice. It even gives you an estimate of how long the process will take. So please enter your first name, last name, date of birth, and occupation or job title. Continue. In the next window, enter your social security number. Without this, you will not be able to file your taxes. And since this is just an example, and let me tell you, this is a fictional example, not that of a real person, we will skip this part. Enter your state of residence until the end of 2023. Then select all that apply below that. TurboTax will tailor your experience based on your selection here. So for example, none of these apply to our taxpayer, Juan de la Cruz. The next section asks about your family situation, whether you're single, married, or something else. If you're married, it's almost always beneficial to file married jointly. Choose how many dependents you have. Please remember, your spouse is not your dependent. Dependents include your children under 19 years old, or if they are a full-time student, up to age 24. You may also include qualifying relatives such as aging parents you are supporting. Enter the information of your spouse. And again, this is just an example, not a real person's name. You'll also need to enter your spouse's social security number or individual taxpayer identification number as well, and their state of residence. TurboTax will then ask a question about making money in another state in the United States, and most likely this wouldn't apply to you. So in the next window, you'll see a summary of your personal profile and that of your spouse. You'll need to enter your address as well. What we have here is a made-up address, not a real one. See, TurboTax is so smart, it even detects that this address is not real. So if you want TurboTax to let you know of any issue, just check these boxes. Now it's time to enter the personal information of your dependents. Do the same for all your children and any other dependents. To determine if you can claim this child as a dependent, TurboTax will ask you a few questions. Enter their social security number as well. So next up, TurboTax will check your wages and income. In this section, you need to have your Form W-2 ready. Your employer should have sent this to you by the end of January. But again, for the purposes of our example, we will rely on a fictional W-2 form, but the information and the boxes are the same for the real one. If you decide to type in the information, enter what is being asked here, the name of the employer and the address, and take a look at this sample W-2 form. The questions being asked by TurboTax correspond with one of the boxes in your W-2 form. You also have the option of taking a photo through the TurboTax app or using your phone camera. Box 1 shows your wages, tips, and other compensation. Box 2 is the federal income tax withheld by your employer. Just answer this carefully based on the information found on your W-2 form. For our example here for Juan de la Cruz, Tennessee does not have income taxes. Yay! But if you live in a state that has a state income tax, then just follow the instructions on TurboTax. Next up, TurboTax will ask for uncommon situations. And for most new immigrants, these would most likely not be applicable. If you want to learn more about each of these items, just click on the question mark beside it. This next section pertains to a health savings account, which is connected to a high deductible health insurance from your employer. If you do not have a health savings account, feel free to skip this part. Form 1099-K is usually given out to freelancers or contractors who earned at least $600. And if you have a side gig such as driving for Uber or Lyft, delivering food via DoorDash, or selling new or used items on eBay or Amazon, then you will have your earnings information on the Form 1099-K. This part about foreign bank account, trust, or financial asset got me confused a little bit when I was filing my tax for the first time, because I maintained my bank account in the Philippines even when we moved to the US. But generally, it is less than $10,000. I did not have that much money in my bank account then. So it's not a problem and it won't have an impact on taxes. The next part includes details about health-related accounts. So in this case, the health savings account connected to a health insurance plan. And the wonderful thing is, if you contributed to a health savings account on top of what your employer paid for, you qualify for some deductions. Again, deductions are great. And after dealing with income, TurboTax will now guide you on deductions and credits. In general, taking the standard deduction will lead to tax savings, and it is the simpler option. For single taxpayers, the standard deduction is $13,850, and that number is $27,700 for taxpayers who are married filing jointly. Now for this exciting part, the software will check credits that will reduce your tax burden. You will get a $2,000 tax credit for each child because Juan, in our example, has 2 kids. He is receiving a credit worth $4,000 US, which means that he will receive a refund of $4,085. That's a pretty big amount of money, maybe equivalent to a full month's salary or even bigger. And to receive the refund, Juan can receive a check or nominate a bank account where the refund will be deposited to. Then TurboTax will just check other tax credits that are less common. So even if you're an immigrant, if you become a full-time student, you may receive some credit as well. However, you need to be careful if your visa does not allow you to become a student in the USA. If you made contributions to a retirement account, you could also get some tax break. TurboTax will also need to confirm your information, and during this time, make sure to review all the information presented by the software, the spelling of your name, your address, your social security numbers. This review and to-do list section is asking for personal information about the social security number, which we will skip for now because again, this is not a real person's tax return. So based on the information we entered, we can see that Juan has paid more taxes and received more tax credits than he needed to pay. That is why he is receiving a refund. Since Tennessee does not have a state income tax, we don't need to go into that. But if your state has an income tax, you can use this section to file. After doing a review of your TurboTax process, you will come across, it's not shown here in our tutorial, but you will have an opportunity to review it one final time, and then you click submit, and TurboTax will then send your tax return to the Internal Revenue Service or the IRS, and your job for your tax return will be done. And then the IRS will review your income tax return, and if it is approved, you have a refund, they will send the refund. But if you did not pay enough tax, then they will send you a bill saying you need to pay this amount to the IRS. So that's it. It's just a very simple and easy process for TurboTax. I have used that many times in my first few years here in the US, but when our situation became a little bit more complicated, we decided to go a different way. So if you want to use TurboTax, again, just go to turbotax.com.